Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, ready to talk some classic Doctor Who once again. But this time, not with my partner in time, Jesse Jackson, because, hey, Jesse has decided he needs quality time with his beloved wife, Linda. So no judgments here. Totally get that. But in the meantime, thankfully, we have a wonderful special guest companion joining us to talk some classic Doctor Who. So please welcome back John Takacs to Next Stop Everywhere. Welcome back, John. How you doing?
Hey, thanks a lot.
So, John, really glad you're able to join us because today here at episode 204, we're going to be talking State of Decay.
Which is perfect since it's October.
Exactly, right? You know, that was one of the great things that, you know, we started last week with the Daemons, and
Yes.
I know you weren't part of that, but you do get to talk vampires this week, so I hope that's at least a small consolation.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, at the time of recording, it's we're in October, so and you got the Daemons, they got the State of Decay with the vampires. It's just perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to do something at least a little Halloweenish in October. Now I know you mentioned before we started recording that while we were running down the trivia for last week, when we talked about the Daemons, you said that I kind of overlooked something. So I'm curious. Now I'm dying of curiosity.
Well,
So what did I miss?
Well, first off, I loved the episode last week. I mean, that's the Daemons is one of my all-time favorites. It's in the top 5.
I hope we did it justice for you.
And then you bring up The Wicker Man too, which is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. So I'm listening to it. All of a sudden, I find myself like, wait a second, he missed the big one, the statue of Bach. After they got done with production, John Pertwee said, "Hey, can I have this?"
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he kept it in his garden for a number of years. It actually scared away a potential burglar.
Nice.
And then over the course of years, it just succumbed to the elements, and then they just had to get rid of it because it just fall apart. But yeah,
Now, was that some kind of paper mache or something, or what was it? It wasn't because it wasn't stone, was it?
No, it wasn't stone. It was probably. I'm sure there was plaster involved.
Yeah.
It's just. It was one of those little trivia bits. I was just like, he missed it.
I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
I dig, so I do a lot of digging.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you told me that because I did not know that.
No, it's just
so I learned something today, you guys. So that's kind of like a little bonus Daemons discussion. So thank you, John. I'm glad you shared that.
So I was actually part of the episode then.
There you go. Exactly. So everybody go back to episode 203 and kind of we're gonna have to cut, splice out this chunk of audio and insert it back into episode 203. So if you guys want to do that at home, feel free. I'm going to be lazy, so I'm not going to do that. But if you guys want to do it, go for it. I give my full permission. All right. Yeah, so unfortunately Jesse's not here, but thankfully John is. So John's kind of being our pinch hitter today, and definitely appreciate that. And he's got to put up with my nonsense, so everybody feel bad for John.
Now, did Jesse actually get a chance to watch it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I'd love to find out what he thought of this one.
I would too, because I'm sure he hasn't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, speaking of which, I watched this one. I haven't watched this one for at least 2 decades.
Wow.
This is one, it's very rare that we get to kind of talk late Tom Baker era on Next Stop Everywhere. We've only done it a couple times. I think we've talked Keeper of Traken and Logopolis. So this is good that we're getting to do this in Tom Baker's final season. So I'm glad we're getting to cover something like this. So it was a great suggestion. But yeah, it's been like 2 decades since I've watched this, and I love the look of it. I love the gothic look of this. Yes. I'm sure that's one thing we got to talk about. But yeah, and it's obviously something else we got to talk about is this little tidbit that the Time Lords apparently have a big feud with vampires, which has never been mentioned until this episode. Something interesting I think we'll talk about. We'll probably do that in our third topic today.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so quick overview. State of Decay, written by Terrence Dicks. Terrence Dicks, obviously one of the most beloved Doctor Who writers throughout history, wrote the War Games. He wrote Robot, so Patrick Troughton's final story, Tom Baker's first story. He wrote Horror of Fang Rock, and he wrote one of my favorite stories, The Five Doctors.
Yeah, that was his last one. This was his penultimate story then.
Yeah, exactly. But he was also a script editor during the Pertwee era. So he's obviously a very major contributor. And he, of course, wrote a ton of Doctor Who Target novel adaptations.
Oh, yeah.
Of various TV episodes from the classic era that a lot of fans, including myself, loved because, especially for me, for the Five Doctors, because it took forever for them to air that here in the States.
Yeah, it did.
So I actually read the novelization before seeing the televised episode on PBS.
Yep, same here.
So I was very, very grateful for that novelization, let me tell you.
And I was so waiting to see that Raston Warrior robot in action.
Yeah, it didn't quite live up to how it came off in the book, did it?
No, I think Terrence did a little bit of a better job writing it than they actually did with production. But no.
I still kind of want to see like an updated, modernized Raston Warrior robot. I think
that'd be
cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. Directed by Peter Moffat, obviously directed a lot of great classic Who episodes. This was the 4th serial from season 18 in 1980, starring, of course, Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor, Lalla Ward as the 2nd Romana, Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, the Stowaway, and we'll talk about that, and, of course, John Leeson as the voice of K9. I was so glad that in K9's final season that John Leeson came back after David Brierley.
Yeah, it was. You gotta love K9, but the change in the voice was a little bit different.
It was a little too drastic for me.
Yeah,
part of me kind of wishes John Leeson would go back and dub all of K9s for like a special edition option.
Yeah,
on those stories, but
it's kind of like hearing the original Day of the Dalek voices.
Yeah, it would be kind of an insult to David Brierley if he did that, but personally, I wouldn't have a problem if he did.
No, not here either.
Guest cast this time, we have William Lindsay as Zargo, Rachel Davies as Camilla, Emrys James as Akon, and he's notable because he was in the movie Dragon Slayer. Clinton Grain as Ivo, and he played Stike in The Two Doctors from the Colin Baker era. Arthur Hewlett as Kalmar, and he turns up again in another Colin Baker story, Terror of the Vervoids, as Kimber. And he was also in the first Blackadder series. So I thought that was kind of neat. And Thane Bettany, I thought was notable as Tarek.
Yep.
The guy who kind of a rebel of this society, this feudal society, who comes in, infiltrates the tower toward the end of the story, freeing the Doctor and Romana. So
Tarek the Traitor.
Tarek the Traitor, exactly. So we'll talk about that. Before we get into trivia, because we do have a lot of trivia on this one, and I'm sure John has some. So I want to get, John, I want to get your thoughts. Now, what was it especially about this story that made you want to discuss it? I know you're a horror fan, so was it just the horror aspect of it, or was it something else?
No, it's just, the horror aspect has a little bit to do with it, but it's just one of my all-time favorites. Season 18 is, there's a few of them that are kind of hit or miss with me. You've got that kind of the new look to the series, the whole new opening. Yeah. It's more synthesized music and all that. So there's a few stories that really just don't do it for me, but this one always did, and I think a lot of it had to do with the production. Obviously, the Great Vampire at the end could have been probably done a little bit better.
Yeah.
But when you look at the sets and the costumes, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that these British actors, especially the trained British actors, that they love to do these kind of stories because they get the glorified costumes and the huge sets and everything. And it's just, and the story was actually supposed to be done way back in season 15.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to cover in our trivia section. But
sorry.
No, it's okay. That's okay. You're entitled. If anybody's allowed to talk trivia, it's you, John. I think you've more than earned that jurisdiction.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, what a perfect segue. Why don't we go into that? Mm-hmm. So since you brought that up, as John mentioned, so this was originally a story that Terrence Dicks submitted called The Witch Lords, that was later retitled The Vampire Mutations, and he originally submitted that in 1977. So why don't you go ahead and give the details on that one, since I'm guessing you've got that written down in your notes.
It was in my notes. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, it's cool. Let's go ahead.
But yeah, it was one of those stories where he wanted to bring more of a Hammer horror aspect into it, and at the time they were just like, "No, we're not going to do that," and it didn't work out at that point in time. But it's I would have loved to have seen this story, like a version of the story with the Doctor and Leela.
Yeah.
Because I think Leela would have been really cool in this story.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Not that Romana and Adric didn't do it, but I mean, just that the whole feel of that season to begin with. I mean, it just would have led to that. It would have led to that little extra with the horror, the gothic horror type feel.
Yeah, I think if you had that tone of, say, a story like Horror Fang Rock, and you brought that into this.
Which was the story that replaced this one.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was it got replaced by Horror Fang Rock, but at least we got it eventually.
Yeah.
But another reason they pulled it was because apparently the BBC was worried about a possible conflict with their Count Dracula production. Mm-hmm. They were doing a high-profile adaptation. So high-profile, nobody talks about it.
Right.
But we are talking about State of Decay, so kind of keep that in perspective a little bit.
Yeah, when I read that, I was just like, wait, what are... I never even heard of this production.
Exactly.
So
high profile. Right? Yeah. But at least we got it eventually. And it probably gave Dick some time to kind of fine-tune the story a bit, I think. Apparently, the original script for State of Decay was Peter Moffat, the director, got to look it over, and he loved it, as is. But apparently he was later handed an adapted version of the script by Christopher H. Beadmade, the script editor, new script editor at the time, under John Nathan Turner, and it was completely different. It no longer had the gothic atmosphere that drew Peter Moffat to the original script. So apparently Peter Moffat told John Nathan Turner that he didn't want to direct it under this new version, so if he was going to direct it, it would have to be the original version. And so J&T buckled, and they did the original version. So I guess we have Peter Moffat to credit for keeping the original. I'm sure Terrence Dicks is happy about that.
Oh, sure.
Or, when he was alive, obviously. Let's see what else. Oh, and just the only other thing I had, maybe you have some more, but the only other thing is this story is the second of 3 serials set in the E-Space. Kind of known as the fans as the E-Space trilogy. Exactly. Which John is holding up right there. He's all ready for it.
My legally purchased copy.
Yep. So I have the very same DVD, yes. So essentially this is kind of a trilogy. So, of course, being next up everywhere, we kind of screwed that up, and we're only doing the State of Decay part right now. So we'll still have Full Circle and Warriors Gate to go. Yeah. Maybe someday we'll talk about those. Keep those in mind for 2021, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is the best out of the 3, though.
Yeah. Although I kind of love the trippiness of Warriors Gate a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's very surreal. I kind of dig that. So do you have any other trivia that I overlooked?
Oh, let's see. At this point in time in their relationship, Tom and Lalla Ward were not on speaking terms. So it made for an interesting production. But they both agreed that they disliked Matthew Waterhouse at that point in time, because at the time he had only been with them for one story ahead of that, and
full circle,
he was a little too big for his britches. Second story in, so they kind of let him know that.
Yeah, he kind of needed to tighten that rope belt of his.
Yeah, exactly. Tom's hair looks particularly curly in this one because he had just come off an illness, which kept him kind of bedridden for a while, which took the curl out of his hair.
Yeah, if you notice, I also noticed that his face is a little more gaunt.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he'd lost some weight during that.
So the BBC, they gave him a perm.
Yep.
And
he's got the bit of the fro going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's teeth and curls all the way in this one.
Pretty much.
One of the actors considered for the role of Alcon, I don't know if you saw this one or not, a certain Colin Baker.
No, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Colin was determined to get on Doctor Who somehow, apparently.
Somehow he eventually got it. So
yeah, that's interesting. All right. Well, we're gonna be talking Colin a little bit at the very end of this episode when we talk about next week. So
okay.
I'm just gonna leave that there for now.
Yep. I haven't peeked ahead, so
yeah.
That'll be a surprise for me as well.
All right. So you have anything else?
Well, speaking of Tom, he was a bit of a prima donna at this point in time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Peter Moffat had to take him out for a drink and tell him what was going on. So it's okay. So I'm the director and you're the talent. So
yes,
you're going to do it my way. Because apparently Tom wanted to direct certain scenes.
Interesting.
And at that point in time, if you're in front of the camera, you're in front of the camera, unless they pull some major strings.
Yeah, there were very strict rules about that, especially working for the BBC. Working for the BBC. So yeah.
Yep. So
we talked about this, I think, a little bit last week. How they didn't even like script editors writing scripts for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they came up with pseudonyms.
Yep.
So that they can kind of get around that. Yeah, Guy Leopold. When we're talking the Damons, they kind of get around that rule a little bit. So that's interesting. All right. So we got 3 topics we're going to want to talk about. Topic number 1, obviously, we're going to talk. We got to talk our stars. So let's talk the 4th Doctor, the Second Romana, K9, and Adric. So Adric, of course, he kind of stowed away at the end of Full Circle, unbeknownst to the Doctor, Romana, and K9, which I have no idea how K9 didn't know, because you would think he would have detected Adric's life signs.
Sense him or something,
yeah, exactly. But, so Adric stowed away, and it's quite a little bit of a surprise when the Doctor and Romana have to learn from the locals that Adric has followed them to this planet. So, and snuck away. So John, any thoughts about the Doctor and Romana in this one? How they carry on, even with it's when you mentioned that Tom Baker and Lalla Ward weren't getting on. I don't think that came across. In their, they were very professional, at least, in keeping that whatever difficulties they were having out of their performances.
Right.
But anything about these two, or K9 or Adric?
Well, I love the fact that we don't even the Doctor and Romana, they don't even realize that Adric's there until episode 3.
Yeah.
And so it's like unbeknownst to them.
Like,
it's
wait, what?
2 different adventures going on at that point in time.
Yeah.
But no, like you said, they as many problems as they were having behind, like off screen, it did not come through in their performances. I mean, they just
No.
I've always loved the Doctor and this version of Romana,
Right.
because obviously the Doctor's always going to be the smartest guy in the room, but he knows that she's no dummy, so he lets her just kind of go on with what she's got to say, thinking that she's got one up on him. But then he kind of like, okay, well, all right, well, how about this? And then she's like, oh, you already knew about that. He's like, yeah. He's it's one of those relationships I've always thought was like really cool with the 2 characters.
Yeah, if you notice, if something I noticed, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're fine.
That in the beginning of this story, in episode 1,
Mm-hmm.
Romana compliments the Doctor, talks about him being amazing, and then at the very end of the story, in episode 4,
Mm-hmm.
the Doctor compliments Romana back.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice little way to bookend the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something I never noticed until this viewing, as I'm trying to make my notes and whatnot. I'm like, oh wow, that was kind of cool that they kind of did a reversal on what happened way back at the beginning of episode 1.
Mm-hmm. And he even says, "You're amazing."
Yeah, exactly.
Says, I am, aren't I?
Yeah, exactly.
But Adric was he was almost filler for most of it. I mean, even in the very beginning when K9 meets up with him, and he's like, okay, well, I stowed away. I stowed myself away, and it was just it seemed a little overacted in my opinion.
Well, it was Matthew Waterhouse, so
yeah. But it was just I mean, like we said, K9 should have sensed him there.
Yeah,
and it'd been like, okay, there's something else. There's
an intruder. There's an intruder
exactly.
in the TARDIS. Something to that effect.
He should have had that nose laser going full force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and K9 was fun, and K9 is always fun. And
right.
When the Doctor's he's got the group of the villagers, the rebels.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, I can't go with you, and they're like, oh, but he says, but. Here we go, and then this is part of my quotes towards the end.
Yeah, you can save it. Yeah.
And you see K9, and they're looking at him like, what the heck is this thing? And so it's like, well, I'm not gonna thank a dog, and K9
that was good. And the Doctor's like, well, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, I'm a K9 fan, so.
Yeah, well, obviously I am as well. So if Jesse was with us, he would have to forcibly acknowledge, yes, he's a K9 fan too, because
I think he's coming around.
Although he's K9 fan under duress, but yeah, for the rest of us, it's like, you better like K9, Buster. You watch yourself. So we love Jesse. All right. I agree. I mean, I didn't see that coming. Any animosity between Tom Baker and Lalla Ward come through in their performances. You see them smiling at each other, just kind of doing their normal banter. And so at least, for anybody who's not familiar with the backstory, that's not ruined for you. And right. I really like that. I'm glad they were professional about it and kept it out of the show. It's kind of interesting to see these two, going through this episode. They get a nice little chase scene where they're in the forest at night, night settling in, and the vampire bats come out, sent by Akon, and one of them takes a little chunk out of the Doctor's neck, a little bit.
Yep.
And feeling a little peckish in the process.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the whole Hammer horror movie vibe from that sequence, because the way it was lit with the natural, the natural light settling into darkness, and then just them hiding under cover, and they're in the forest. There's all these leaves, and it looks very gothic and very 70s horror vibe to it.
And even though it was stock footage of the bats, it didn't detract from anything with the story.
No. I mean, eventually, the bats have to come into the shot, so they're kind of like puppets on wires or something. But
yeah.
Then it gets a little hokey. But
now, in the original script, instead of vampire bats, it was supposed to be like zombie villagers that were bitten and affected like that. So.
But at least the vampire bats kind of stay on point with the whole vampire theme, a little bit.
At least we get a bat on a string.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Adric, we talked about Adric. He, obviously he stowed away. We know that, but he had a great little moment, I thought, with K9, where he essentially, like, K9's having a little debate with him about why Adric is there. Mm-hmm. And Adric tells him, well, I'm a stowaway, so I really shouldn't be here, right? Because he's wanting to leave the TARDIS.
Right.
But K9's kind of stopping him. And so it's like, well, if I'm a stowaway, wouldn't it be better if the faster I leave the TARDIS, the better?
Mm-hmm.
And K9 thinks for a moment, he's like said something to the effect of like, your conclusion is logical or something like that. Your logic is infallible.
Kind of like, oh, you got me.
Yep, you got me. And yeah, Adric walks out. He's like, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like Adric a little bit more in this one than I do in later stories because he seems a little bit more of a rebel in this one. He's kind of like he goes in to the village and right away he's like looking for food.
Yeah.
He goes in and he starts like swiping food or whatever, and they kind of catch him doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of talks his way into like being invited to stay. And he's kind of like, sitting down with them and like, do you have any salt or whatever? I forget what he says.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't have that. But
here's the poor mother pouring her heart out to him, saying that she just lost her son. And he says, well, do you have any cheese?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, cheese.
Jerk.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he was going to steal their food.
Right.
Just because he was hungry.
Yep.
So, and then
he does kind of make up for it towards the end because he's essentially playing this game where Romana feels that he's going over to the side of the vampires.
Right. He wants to become he wants to become a vampire.
He's being lured by all this like power and immortality and all that, and then finally he defends Romana and he says, "Well, it was just a ruse, basically."
Yeah. And I was watching that and I'm thinking, no, it wasn't a ruse. You were going to go along with that whole vampire thing.
Probably.
And, you got caught, so now you're trying to act like it was a ruse. Like it was all part of your big master plan. And, but I wasn't, I think Adric would have actually gone ahead and became a vampire if, because he makes this comment later. He's like, well, that's one of my quotes, but he's like, you're on the menu, so if it's either that or I become a vampire.
Yes.
So I'm going to become a vampire, right?
He would have been such a whiny vampire, too.
Oh, my God, yes. I think even the other vampires would have staked him.
They might have. Oh, they would have stabbed him with his badge of excellence.
Yeah, exactly. They would have made a wooden badge of mathematical excellence and then would have stabbed him with that.
Oh, jeez.
Or they would have built another mini spaceship to go up into the air and come down and stab him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. One or the other. All right. Anything else about the Doctor and Romana or K9 and Adric?
No, I think we got it there.
Okay. Topic number 2. Let's talk about Kalmar, the heretical scientist in this story. And then we can also talk about Ivo, Marta, and their son Carl, who Ivo and Marta very understandably worried about at the beginning of the story. And we can also talk about Tarek, that would-be rebel that shows up and ends up freeing the Doctor and Romana toward the end of the story, only to end up getting killed. So, any thoughts about our locals in this story? Because we don't really have a name for this planet, do we?
No, there was never a name, and
just
there was
East
never a
Base
name
planet.
for the
vampire planet.
It was just a village.
Yeah.
Of course, being the wasting that they were being protected from. But yeah, they were so kept in the dark, and it was just they said it was 200 centuries, so that's 20,000 years that they've been ruled by the three who rule.
Yep.
So yeah, those three vampires, I think they did a heck of a good job keeping them subdued. And that's a long time.
And obviously they were feeding off them for a while, and we'll talk about that here more. But yeah, the villagers were under their control, and they're kind of they apparently have this yearly ritual called the selection, where young villagers are kind of taken to this tower, never to be seen again, and they've got basically Zargo, Camilla, and all kind of like have their own hired goon squad to come in
Yeah.
and enforce this. And unfortunately, this time it's Ivo and Marta's son Carl that gets called up,
Mm-hmm.
and Ivo's not happy about it, protests, but of course the Goon Squad is more than happy to take Carl away, and like the one guy Habris says, well, no, it's okay, I'll look out for your son, I'll help him become a guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ivo and Marta know differently, apparently.
Well, even Ivo even says, he said, he's not for the selection.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why not? I mean, I would have loved to have found out. Okay, well, why? You got all these other guys here, guys and girls, waiting to be picked.
Yep.
But the one that looks the strongest out of all of them, nope, he's not for selection.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I was just like, but he comes around later. He says Tarek said he's going to make him a guard.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to feed them or whatever wherever they think they're doing. But yeah, obviously later on, when he's talking to Kalmar, he says, well, yeah, they drank his blood, and Kalmar, he's a sweet old man, but dude, he's been waiting all those years.
Yeah.
And he's just, no, we need to find the scientific principles. And it's like, no, you got a whole group here that's ready to attack, but you want to wait. And he even says, he's what, a couple more 100 years? He says, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're going to be dead. At least try it. Try to get in there and take over.
Well, and then that kind of presents both sides of this argument here that Kalmar is, I think it's safe to say he's not a warrior.
Right.
So his inclination is like, well, we've got this machinery, this technology we don't know much about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could use that as a weapon, but we have to study it first. And by this time, everybody's fed up, so enough to have formed this resistance group. So on the other hand, you've got like people like Ivo and the others. They're like, yeah, let's attack now.
Yeah, and Ivo even says to him, he says, okay, well, we're gonna attack the tower.
Yeah.
You watch it on your scanner.
Yeah.
Which, when he said that, I was just like, oh, apply burn cream right here.
You worry about the scanners, I'll worry about the tower.
Yes.
To paraphrase a line from Star Wars. A little bit.
But
sorry,
yeah, it was,
I couldn't resist that.
Some of them were, some were a little bit more. I couldn't really see them as peasants.
Yeah.
They're
extras.
Yeah, pretty much. But they extras with very neatly trimmed beards.
Yeah.
And I think all of them had string headbands that they were all wearing.
Yeah.
But they didn't look like peasants to me.
Yeah. Although I kind of wondered about Kalmar because with that big bald head of his, and he's got these kind of like white strings that basically looks like a really bad comb over.
Yeah.
Because of this, whatever headgear he is wearing. And
but they're all braided too.
And I'm thinking, Kalmar, have you looked in the mirror recently? You might want to fix that. It's annoying.
You might want to turn that scanner around.
Yeah, exactly.
And see what you actually look like.
Maybe scan yourself. Yeah, exactly. But I thought it was funny, and I thought Kalmar had some funny scenes with the doctor, where they're messing with equipment, and the doctor's like, just banging on the equipment. Oh yeah, just thump it. It'll fixes everything.
This one too. The secondary characters saying they had some good personalities.
Yeah,
they weren't just throwing like extras with names. They
weren't disposables.
They had some background.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
And that's one of the things that I think is because of skilled writers like Terrence Dicks.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, when you flesh out these secondary characters, I think it helps the story because when these secondary characters get killed, you care about them more because you know them more as people.
Right.
Yeah. So, the thunk, whatever fell over.
Yeah.
But so Kalmar helps the doctor. They repair this computer. Oh no, I'm sorry. Kalmar gets help from the doctor.
Right.
Helps him. They repair the computer, which reveals the names and faces of the original chief officers of the spaceship Hydrax.
Which I thought was so cool.
Yep, and we find out that apparently there's a little bit of a connection between the three who rule, and the chief officers on the Hydrax from all those years ago. So let's see what else. And we had Tarek, who infiltrated the tower. He end up getting killed by Zargo. And let's see what else.
I love how Romana has to show him how to get into the door.
Yeah.
he puts the card in there and it doesn't open. So no, not like that, like this.
It's like it's a key card entry. Come on. This is how you do this. So maybe you thought it was one of those that you just hold up to the device and it scans it, but nope, not so much. And of course, at the end of the story, the Doctor kind of helps give them He basically loads up Kalmar's computer with more technological data to kind of get the society back on track from what the vampire lords had. Essentially, this is where the title of the story, State of Decay, comes from, because we find out that their society was essentially devolved because of they started off with this really advanced technology, and then they end up kind of reverting back to kind of medieval technology or medieval development. So that's where the State of Decay comes from in this story. It's kind of a double entendre, meaning also, of course, decayed corpses.
Yeah.
Meaning vampires and whatnot. So
I always think it's cool when they actually use the title in
the episode,
in the dialogue,
like a line for exactly, yeah. It is good. It kind of makes it more relevant, I think. Yeah. All right. Anything else about our locals?
Not really. And they were. Like I said, they did a nice job. I like the fact that they were all. They had individual characters of their own.
Right.
They weren't just extras, but some of them just. I think makeup and costuming could have been a little bit done better with them. With like if there were peasants, saying let's see them look like peasants.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just they're trying to present this kind of contrast between the three who rule, who are kind of live this very lavish lifestyle, and everybody else who dressed in these drab gray and brown colors.
Yeah.
Very muted colors. So it gives more of a visual contrast, I think. But yeah. All right. Topic number 3. Third and final topic this week. Let's talk about, speaking of the three who rule, let's talk about Zargo, Camilla, and Aucon, or as they're also known, Sharky, Macmillan, and O'Connor. So, and then we can also talk about the Great One, a.k.a. one of the last of the great vampires. And we also need to talk, definitely, speaking of the great vampires, we kind of need to talk about what is the deal with the Time Lords having this secret war with vampires. And
absolutely.
And that was something that Terrence Dicks just kind of dropped on everybody. So for everybody whose minds are freaked out about the Timeless Children from the Jodie Whittaker era, here we have Terrence Dicks back in the day saying, oh, by the way, the Time Lords had this big beef with vampires.
Yep. Prepare to be mind blown again.
So wherever you want to start with first, whatever you.
Well, I think
there's a lot to talk about there.
The great vampires. Nowadays you could actually say that was probably one of the first Time Wars.
Yeah.
I would love to see that revisited. Because now with CGI, I could just see these huge bow ships just flying through space, and
right.
I really think you could do a lot with it. Even if you could do like a prequel story to this with the three who ruled before they were vampires, but they were. I thought they were really cool, and the fact that Zargo. You can see in that one scene when he was promised power by Aucon, and Aucon hasn't given him all the power that he promised him, and he even says it to Camilla. He said, if this is happening right now, why am I scared?
Right.
Because he hasn't gotten what he was promised. But now Aucon, I thought he was awesome, and he just kind of like he seeped evil when he walked into that
Yeah.
room with when they're doing the selection. They're like, oh, well, guess what? Here's another selection, and guess what? Here's the guy that's going to select you too.
Yeah. Well, especially since we find out later that, he's the one who's the most dialed in
Yeah.
with the great vampire, the great one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I thought it was an interesting twist because you have this king and queen, in the form of
Supposedly,
Zargo, of Zargo and Camilla, but it's
Mhm.
their advisor, Akon. That's the one that's really in charge here.
Yeah. And I think even the guards see it. They just
Yeah.
okay. Well, these are the two that are like they're the highest one. They're the king and the queen vampire, but they're afraid more of Akon than they are of Zargo and Camilla.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally get the big reveal of the continental shift, how their names have changed throughout the years, and it's actually the originals, not their descendants. And that's just like, okay, like I said before, it's 20,000 years that they've been on this planet, and that's a huge one right there.
Well, and it's also a big tip off, like, big screaming neon letters, that these guys are all vampires because of being long lived. And like, once we find out, well, hey, those three, they're not descendants, they're originals. And so it's like, well, it's because they've been around for a long time.
And obviously, they've got some power. If they've been, those peasants, they have not had a chance to really use their intelligence and get better for themselves. Because you figure 20,000 years, they're probably the same as they were before, or even worse.
Right.
And they've been just harvesting them basically. And when they open up the fuel tanks and you see blood instead of fuel, that was like one of the coolest reveals ever.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like this Matrix reveal that where that humans are batteries in the Matrix movie.
Yeah.
That like they've been drinking these people all these years for centuries and eons, and so
not only drinking them, but like harvesting them for the great one too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just this. Essentially, they're just killing them enough to keep the population going, so they don't run out of their supply.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I first saw this years and years ago on PBS, I had not read the novelization first, so I had no idea that the Hydrax was actually the castle was the Hydrax.
Yeah.
So when that reveal happened, I was just like, even though it was some cheesy old BBC special effects, it was like just a really cool idea. Okay, here's your giant bolt of steel that you don't have from a bow ship, but you've got it from the Hydrax, one of the scout ships off of it. Yeah,
and it's just a cool idea that because you figure you have expectations when you see a vampire story.
Yeah,
and you figure, okay, well, there's this castle, and you kind of assume, well, it's just a normal castle because hey, they live in this feudal society.
Mm-hmm.
But the reveal is that, well, it's not just a castle; it's actually a spaceship. Parts of it were, because we find out that essentially they added on to the spaceship when they constructed the rest of the castle.
Right.
And so it makes for a great. Obviously, I think they could do it better if they kind of did an updated CGI effects option on a future Blu-ray release, maybe. I know this one just came out on Blu-ray. We never got it, but maybe someday. But it's still cool to kind of see that spaceship break off from the castle, and you kind of realize, well, yeah, that's that they've been hiding that secret all these years.
And as much as you assume that there's going to be a castle in a vampire story, you also assume that there's going to be a stake going through the heart.
Yeah, but you don't really see that the spaceship itself is the stake.
Right, exactly.
So it just goes up, and then the Doctor's kind of smiling and like, well, guess what I did? I reprogrammed it to come up and straight back down. Because hey, it's his show, right?
That is why Terrence Dicks was such a genius.
Yep. So it goes up. What goes up must come down, and then the poor great vampire is just like, ah. And I only got to get my claw on screen. Because
It was cool though. The
yeah.
way they did the that scene. I mean,
But
yeah,
didn't
when
you
you see
want to
him on
see
the
the rest of
scanner.
the Great Vampire?
Well, we saw some of it on the scanner, which looked a
Yeah.
little cheesy, but I mean,
Yeah.
it
You think
almost reminds me of
you think it was more effective if they just showed the hand?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like the end of Cabin in the Woods
Okay.
when you see that big hand. I wonder if they got that idea from Doctor Who. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know, but
Well, you know, Joss Whedon's a Doctor Who fan, so
yeah,
yeah.
so it's quite possible. But I mean, just to see the hand with the glowing red lights from underneath it. I mean, I'm a model guy, special effects guy, so when I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool, and you just kind of imagine, like, well, how much better would the story be if we'd had, updated effects?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you had throw some CGI in this and you could really make it even better, I
And
think.
they've done it with so many other stories. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
just please. This one and Invasion of the Dinosaurs, please.
Yes. Invasion of the Dinosaurs is screaming for an update. Yes.
It's such a good story and needs better effects.
It does. It does.
And
need better.
and I'm a classic series fan, so
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think a lot of us would love to see
hmm
that. Maybe here's hoping that whenever that season gets released, here's hoping. So, all right. No, you did mention, when we were talking before we got into this topic, you did mention that, how cool it was to learn about that the Time Lords had this war with the
hmm
vampires. And part of me is kind of wondering, especially since it's interesting that right now we're covering the story, but at the time that if you're a Doctor Who magazine subscriber, in the very latest issue of Doctor Who magazine, they're running a comic strip serial, which is part of the Time Lord Victorious
hmm
event that's taking place right
Okay.
now. And it's called, I think it's called Monsters of Beauty, if I'm not mistaken. But it features the Ninth Doctor and Rose, and somehow they've gone back to the dark times when the Time Lords were fighting the vampires.
Ooh.
So I thought it was really interesting timing that we're talking about the story now. And here I am, reading this new comic strip adventure. And so it kind of makes me wonder, because we talk a lot about, especially classic fans, we talk about, the dark times on Gallifrey.
Right.
So wouldn't that kind of make sense that the dark times be this period, maybe when the Time Lords were fighting the vampires?
Sure. And you figure if it was as bad as they as he was reading about it, maybe
Yeah.
they time locked the whole thing, just like
The Time War?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
I,
it's really
I might have
interesting.
to
You might
pick
have
up
to
that
check that.
issue.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it. It's only like part
Yeah.
one, so it's going to be. I think they're going to be doing a couple more issues for the story. But if you want to check out part one of the story, get the latest Doctor Who magazine. I forget the issue
Yeah.
number, but
I used to subscribe, but it became a little too pricey for me on a monthly basis.
I mean, maybe it's a little cheaper in the electronic version.
Yeah.
So you might want to
Yeah,
check that
definitely.
out. Just
Yeah,
highly
absolutely.
recommend. Little heads up from everybody. So
Maybe we'll see some bow ships.
maybe. But I thought it was a cool idea to go back to that period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because it's never been talked about since.
no, and I think it's something that's ripe for story potential. I'm kind of surprised Big Finish hasn't done anything with that.
Yeah. Well, good
So,
for them for
so
making a comic strip of it. That's awesome.
maybe they'll do a Dark Times,
Yeah.
range, I guess. So that'd be kind of cool. All
That
right.
would be.
All right. Anything else about the story that we overlooked?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay. One thing we didn't talk about is I thought it was a pretty cool effect at the end of the story when, after the great vampire gets staked by the spaceship,
Okay.
that the three who rule crumble to dust.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I thought that was pretty good effects for back then. I mean,
It was. And
this is 1980
hmm
BBC Doctor Who budget, but I thought it was pretty well for that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, some really cool time lapse.
Yeah.
And then you get that gurgling effect with them, which was pretty cool.
They had some pretty good makeup for the actors, like they're looking all desiccated and emaciated, and I thought it was pretty cool. So.
And Zargo just looked creepy when he was dying.
He was the worst, right? Yeah, because they kind of extended out his eyebrow bone structure, and so he has these really sunken in eyes and elevated cheekbones.
Like a skull with skin over the top of it.
Yeah. And his eyes are looking all wide.
Yeah.
So he looks pretty horrific. Yeah.
Well, you gotta figure that's 20,000 years that they're being brought back to. So
moisturize me.
No, that was that.
No, wait, that's someone else. That's someone else. All right, I don't know why I got that in there, but yeah, that was maybe the little Lady Cassandra intervention might help. I don't know. All right, so if you don't have anything else, favorite quotes? Do you have any favorite? You said you had some favorite quotes.
Yeah,
so
I got a couple here.
Why don't you go ahead and share those?
Okay, let's see. When I can't think of the name of the guard he's talking to Alcon during the attack. He says well they're going to wipe us out.
Habris?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Habris, yeah.
Yeah, and Alcon just looks at him and he says, "Then die." That's what guard's job is. I was just like,
That is the purpose of God.
Yes. Hey, yes. And Habris, the look on his face is just like it's all just come back to him. Like, okay, I'm just basically cattle right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're the red shirt, my man.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy being expendable. All right. Do you have another quote?
When the doctor's standing, he's sitting there with all the rebels, and he says, "Well, no, I'm not going to go with you." And they're just like, "Oh," and he says, "But," he says, "I can give you something else: armored, immune to hypnotism, and a dead shot with a nose laser." And he says, "K9." They look at the TARDIS, and K9 just kind of plops right out, and they're just like, "Huh?"
What?
Oh, I loved it.
Poor K9. All right. I like the early exchange when Adric shows up in Ivo and Marta's inn, tavern, whatever that was, that eating hall, and Marta's like, "Who are you? How did you come here?" And Adric says, real casually, "Oh, I walked." And Marta's like, "I don't know you." And Adric shoots back, "Well, I don't know you either."
He's such a jerk, too.
He is, but I thought that was a pretty good line.
Yeah, it was a good line.
This is probably like the best lines he's ever gotten in Doctor Who.
I think so.
In this episode. Let's see. The Doctor talking to Romana, where he says, "Whatever it is, we want to find it, don't we?" And Romana replies, "No." And the Doctor replies to that, "Good. Come on then." So that was good. Akon and the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a similar vein, where Akon says, "There is power here, such as you have never dreamed of. Can you not feel it?" And the Doctor kind of wets his finger, holds it up as he's checking for the wind, and he replies, "No."
I had that down there.
That was a good one. Let's see. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Romana talking to Adric, where she says, "They are vampires, Adric. Do you want to become one of them?" And Adric replies, "You said yourself you're on the menu. If it's a choice between that and going and joining the diners, I mean, there's no sense in two of us getting the chop."
Mm-hmm.
Such a coward, Adric.
The only one I had was it was during the exchange with the Doctor and Ivo.
Yeah.
And they're right before the Doctor realizes that he could, in his mind, he knows that he could use one of those scout ships as a mighty bolt of steel. Ivo's over here saying, "Well, what if we sharpened a tree trunk?" And he just the look that he gives him is perfect. And he says, "Or a catapult." And then right then and there, when he says catapult, that's when the Doctor realizes that he could use the Hydrax.
Yeah.
But that was.
He's like, "I got something better."
Yeah. But when he says he's so resolute, he's like, "How about we sharpen a tree trunk?" I'm like, "No."
And then we get a big crossbow.
Uh-huh.
Launch it. Yeah, exactly. All right. So what's your rating for this one?
I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10 great vampires.
Nice. I was going to do, actually, we're in sync. I give it 8 out of 10 as well. Since you took great vampires, I was going to go with great vampire stabbed with a spaceship.
Okay.
But I'm going to go with 8 out of 10 vampire bats.
Okay, that's cool.
All right. So John and I
It's
in sync.
October, it's vampires, it's vampire bats.
Exactly. So it's a great. So it's Dr. Halloween, everybody. You see what I did there?
There you go.
Hashtag Dr. Halloween. All right. So reverse the polarity. This should be a pretty easy one this week. So if we're talking vampires and State of Decay, if we want to jump ahead in time, we're reversing the polarity to the modern era. So why don't we, of course, pick The Vampires of Venice, the 6th episode from Series 5 in 2010, written by Toby Whithouse. Hard to believe that one's 10 years old already.
Wow.
Just like that. I know DJ Nick has wanted to talk about this one because, hey, he's Italian guy. So he might want me to reserve this one for him. We haven't talked about it yet, so we really should talk about it.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just kind of hit the highlights here. The 11th Doctor gate crashes Amy's fiancé Rory's stag party, invites the two of them on a romantic trip to Venice. Venice. In 1580. The city's patron, Signora Rosanna Calvieri, claims that the Black Plague is running rampant outside of Venice, but the Doctor says, nope, that's not happening. And it appears she's using the plague as an excuse to seal off the city. While investigating, they encounter Guido, a boat builder whose daughter Isabella hasn't contacted him since enrolling in Rosanna's school for girls. Amy, of course being Amy, places herself inside the school and unlocks a gate to allow the others in, but in the process is captured and taken to a chamber. The Doctor and Rory believe that the women are being converted into vampires. Not quite. Sort of, as it turns out. While Amy kicks at Rosanna's side and disrupts a device hiding her true fish-like alien form. So, fish vampires, essentially, as we find out. So they begin converting Amy into one of them, while Isabella, who is yet to be fully converted, frees Amy and they escape. Isabella hesitates while escaping because she can no longer tolerate direct sunlight, gets pulled back inside. The Doctor goes back inside to question Rosanna, who confirms that her race is from the planet Saturnine. And they landed on Earth after, quote, seeing silence and the end of all things. Because silence must fall, right? The Doctor deduces that, aside from Rosanna, only the males of the species survived the trip, and that Rosanna and her son, Francesco, must want to sink the city into the water and convert girls into, quote, compatible girlfriends, unquote, to procreate. After the Doctor returns to Guido's home to regroup with Amy and Rory, Rosanna sends the girls to attack. Rosanna activates a device in the tower that begins to create earthquakes and floods that will sink Venice. While Amy and Rory face and defeat Francesco, the Doctor climbs the tower and stops the device just in the nick of time because the Doctor. And because Rosanna is the last female of her kind, she kind of resigns herself to the situation, throws herself in the canal, and allows herself to be eaten. Nom, 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 nom. Afterwards, Amy and the Doctor invite Rory to continue traveling with them, but as the Doctor and Rory are about to enter the TARDIS, everything falls silent. Silence must fall. So
it's a fun story.
It is a fun story. The Vampires of Venice, probably coming to Next Stop Everywhere sometime in 2021 with a certain DJ Nick. We do have some feedback from Holly Mack and Dave Proctor. So Holly writes in, hey, Charles, Jesse, and John. I'm a little surprised that the TARDIS didn't alert the Dr. and Romana to the fact that Adric had stowed away on her, right? Unless they knew and were just waiting for Adric to make his presence known. I love the little conversation between Adric and K9, though Adric probably would have been better off staying put in the TARDIS. Unwritten rule number 1, best to stay in the TARDIS. But then again, that's just me. But I think all the Doctor's companions have selective hearing when it comes to stay in the TARDIS. When those words get uttered, they don't stay put. No, they don't. Because It'd be pretty boring if they did. So I wasn't too thrilled with Adric when he let Romana get captured.
Right.
I was doing that to rescue you. Sure you were. So Holly's a little skeptical like me about Adric's motives. I think that when those vampires offered you a chance at eternal life, you were all for it. Yep. At least these vamps weren't of the fish variety. I see what you did there. Considering we just talked about that in reverse the polarity. The Dr. K9 touched on some of the vampire mythologies, and to find out that the Time Lords could be the first vampire slayers was an interesting twist. Mm-hmm. All in all, not a bad story. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Holly. So you're saying we need a Romana the Vampire Slayer story?
That'd be cool.
Or series. Yeah, there you go.
In E-Space.
In E-Space, exactly. In E-Space, hunting down the last of the great vampires. Yep. Yeah, I'm out for that. And lastly, of course, we have, but certainly not leastly, we have David K. Proctor, as we call him Dave, because we're special like that. So Dave writes in, "Hi, everyone." Hi, Dave. "I know I've seen the story before, but I didn't specifically remember it. It must have been since the 80s. It wasn't bad, and it was Tom Baker, my doctor, and Romana Devora Trelander, too. Mm-hmm. I do love Romana. Don't we all?" I hope you appreciated my pronunciation of that.
That's awesome.
Tripped me up a little bit earlier, but I got it. Every so often it catches me.
Yep.
It's a lot of consonants and vowels there. I couldn't help but notice the different scarf the doctor has, and it matches his coat. And I don't like the question marks on the collar. I know it becomes a thing from here on. Yeah, you can thank John Nathan Turner, the showrunner, for that. Because he was all big on the question marks, unfortunately. And I remember reading somewhere, I forget where it was, but apparently the way that the burgundy scarf that the doctor wears is supposed to kind of signify, because, obviously his previous scarf had multicolors in it. And this one is essentially like, it's that kind of, it's like a burgundy and purple, almost dark purple, dark navy blue or whatever.
Maroon and...
Yeah, maroon, something like that. It kind of depends on what picture you're looking at when, but something along those lines. I'm kind of a little bit of a violet shade colorblind, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But I think it was supposed to signify that the Doctor had kind of, in his final season, had unified. He's more together, more whole. So a little bit of symbolism, I think.
Yeah, I've read that same thing.
I'm not sure where I read that, but I think it's supposed to be representative of that.
Instead of just all over the place, he was bringing everything together.
Yeah, exactly. Not so scattered. Because remember, that was one of the things that when I think Choji mentioned in Planet of the Spiders, that, you may find his mental state a bit erratic. So maybe by this point, the Doctor's mind had healed up.
Oh, it took 6 years.
Yeah, it only took 6 seasons, but hey, we got there, right? So Dave continues. Adric, I did like the scene where he was silent in a trance.
Didn't we all?
So what you're saying is Adric is best when he's not talking, right, Dave?
I'll never know if I was right.
We are being brutal to Adric today, but that's okay. It's fun. Dave says, 6E is a Type 40 time vehicle. Yes, she is. How convenient. K9 to the rescue. E-Space is an interesting concept. Yes, it is. I'm kind of surprised we haven't gone back there.
No. That greenish tint to the...
Yeah. Apparently there's CVEs out there, so you think they just fly into one of these days. I thought this was an okay story and would rate it straight 6 strangers that wander into town and should really horrify me since we know everyone in the world, but I get over it almost immediately. I see where he's coming from the villager's perspective that, hey, all these strangers show up, even though we know everybody here. So thank you, Dave, and thank you, Holly. Always great to hear from you. So if you want to be like Holly and Dave, and please do, write to us at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on the Twitter machine at nextstopsmg on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. where we've got 400 likes, and we'd obviously
Nice.
love some more. So help us out if you would. Be so kind if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much for doing so. And you can reach us on Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. John, where can they reach you?
Oh, well, I almost wrote in last week for the Damons, but my work schedule was so hectic. I was just like, we have to do a rewatch of that, though.
Well, you're always welcome to write in an email if you can't join us. We definitely appreciate it.
So reaching me, easiest ways through the 2 Facebook groups that I do, the Ohio Type 40. Since we now know through this episode that TARDIS is a Type 40, but
yes,
it's been said before. The Ohio Type 40 we're one of the 4 largest Doctor Who groups in the Buckeye State. You don't have to be a Ohio citizen to like us. Just give us a like and have some fun with us. Also,
but it helps.
I'm not going to say that because I got likes from overseas too. So
it's not a requirement, but it certainly doesn't hurt, right?
No, it doesn't hurt. But we got a certain like from a Nabil Shaban. So that's
awesome. You got Syl.
We got Syl.
Yeah, we got Syl, baby.
We got him.
That's awesome.
Also, Type 2 Doctor Who.
Hi, Syl. I hope you're listening.
There you go. It's a support group for Type 2 diabetics who are also Doctor Who fans, just like myself. We're a little slow going, but we're there if you need us. So,
I appreciate that.
And then
that's awesome.
my YouTube channel, because I love doing sci-fi and fantasy models and miniatures. Out of This World Models and Minis. Come find us on YouTube. We got just on about half a dozen videos up there right now, but we're going strong, and I'm halfway through my my K9 build from the K9 model kit from the 1980s.
Yeah, maybe you should send us a progress update.
I will. Yeah, he's curing in the garage right now. I had to put some primer on him to see if all the little resin pock marks are filled in yet.
How's it coming? Is it coming pretty good?
It is. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yep. So now I'm curious. I want to see that.
Yeah.
So everybody, please follow John in all his endeavors on Facebook and. Especially, Type 2 Doctor Who, which is a great group, and also Ohio Top 40, and, his Models and Miniatures group. So that would be fantastic if you guys did that. John is so wonderful. He comes on here. He gives us his time. So I would take it as a personal favor if you guys did the same to him and give him some love as well.
It would be appreciated.
We definitely want to support John in everything he does because he's awesome, you guys.
Thanks.
So we love having John on here.
You guys are awesome for having me.
Wait a minute. So that means we're not awesome if we don't have you?
No,
okay.
Adding to it. Adding to the awesomeness that is Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast.
All right. I'm just teasing. All right. Okay. All right. Of course, as for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog, Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, and all kinds of comic book sci-fi news in my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Jesse, and I'm soon to be doing with DJ Nick, because we are going to be talking The Boys Season 2. Starting on Monday, so we're recording this on a Wednesday right now, so in like 5 days from now, we're going to be recording the first episode of The Boys Season 2 on the Phantom Zone, so I hope everybody checks that out.
Yes, because it was an awesome season.
And appreciate DJ Nick filling in for Jesse on that one to help me talk about that, because it's been a great season, and I had a lot of fun watching it. And Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I also do with Jesse and DJ Nick. Right now we're kind of on hiatus because we're waiting for Titans Season 3 and Doom Patrol Season 3. So not a lot going on right now. But as soon as we get some updates, I know Titans has started filming again. So hopefully if we get enough to fill up an episode, we'll do a special episode just to kind of remind everybody, hey, we're still around. And waiting just like you guys for it to come back to HBO Max now from DC Universe. And then lastly, Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast I do with Zan Sprouse, whom all of you have heard here on Next Stop Everywhere. Zan is fantastic, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So if you enjoy Zan on our podcast here, you definitely want to check Zan and I out on Ghostwood, because right now, next week, we're going to record our 6th and final Twin Peaks actor appearing on The X-Files, that little retrospective we've been doing. And we're going to be talking Richard Bamer in the episode Sanguinarium of The X-Files. So that's going to be an interesting one to talk about, I think. And kind of wrapping up that, and then afterwards we're going to be talking the new Criterion collection of The Elephant Man,
Ooh.
the David Lynch film, starring, a certain John Hurt, a.k.a. the War Doctor. So Doctor Who fans, if you're a John Hurt fan, you definitely want to check that out, coming up soon. And check out Ghostwood. Hope you enjoy it. All right, John, thank you so much. I had a ball, man.
Oh, it was great. I had a great time.
I kind of enjoyed, just you and me talking. Not to say anything against Jesse, because obviously I love talking with Jesse, but it's kind of nice to have a little break, and it kind of worked out. Jesse got his vacation with his wife, and I get to talk with you one-on-one.
Yeah, sounds good. And like I said, I'd love to find out what Jesse thought about this one if he got a chance to watch it.
Yeah. So Jesse, hopefully you're listening, and if you are, you're going to have to let us know next time what you thought about State of Decay.
And I'm so happy that he liked the demons.
Yeah, that was a fun.
I was wondering. I was like, is he gonna like it? Is he gonna like it? It's 5 episodes. It's not.
You have no idea how nervous I get when I swear I get personal stress involved. Like, I get like this little pit. It's a good thing I'm on anxiety meds, because it really puts me on edge. Like, is he gonna like this one?
Or are you gonna get Captain Grumpy?
Yeah, or are we going to get Captain Grumpy? Exactly. Yep. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So, fortunately, he liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he liked the invasion, too.
Yeah.
So, I was very, very happy about that.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to do more Troughton and Pertwee, at least, when we talk classic era. I was kind of surprised he said that he liked Troughton and Pertwee over Tom Baker.
Yeah.
That was an interesting
was,
revelation he gave last week. All right. Next time on Next Stop Everywhere, Jesse's back.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll find out what he thought of State of Decay. But we're also going to be talking in episode 205, Arc of Infinity.
Ooh.
We take a little break from our Halloween-themed episodes a little bit. But this is one that we wanted to talk about for a while, especially because a certain Colin Baker makes his Doctor Who debut before he becomes the 6th Doctor.
Yep.
And so Colin Baker was the very first actor to appear on Doctor Who before becoming the Doctor himself, or herself. So this is kind of a pretty notable one. It also has Michael Gough, who played, of course, Alfred Pennyworth in the 4 Batman movies from the late 80s and 90s. Pretty cool talking about that. And, of course, he played the Celestial Toymaker back during the Hartnell era. So here he is back in the Davison era one last time. So
Also the return of Omega.
Oh, yeah, Omega. Can't forget Omega, right?
My favorite.
Yeah, so big bad of the 3 Doctors making his return here in Arc of Infinity. And Tegan rejoins the TARDIS after taking a little time off from Time Flight. So lots going on, lots to talk about in this one.
Yeah, we'll just let you save it for next time.
We could be here all night.
You're going to be going.
We got things to do. But hey, John, if you want to watch the episode and write in, you're more than welcome to.
Sounds good.
All right, so everybody, come on back, Arc of Infinity. Thank you again, John.
No problem.
I hope you had a good time. Hope you had fun. I know I did.
I always did. It's like I say, I love talking Doctor Who to anybody, and it's the fact that I can talk about it to you who are a classic fan just as much as I am. It's amazing.
Exactly. I can relate, if nothing else. I feel you, definitely. So everybody, thanks again for listening. John, we'll see you again hopefully soon on the podcast. And everybody come on back to episode 205, Arc of Infinity, next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.